In a war-torn Earth, drone repairman Jack Harper rescues a mysterious woman from his dreams, leading him to question his identity and uncover shocking truths. Get ready for this gripping journey in oblivion. Jack says New York is a place he's only seen pictures of. He knows her, but they've never met. He's with her, but he doesn't know her name. He knows he's dreaming, but it feels like more than that. He remarks that it feels like a memory and wonders how that's possible. Jack wakes up on March 14, 2077, 5 years since the mandatory wipe, and he's still haunted by the dreams. He was assigned with Victoria, and in 2 weeks, their mission will be finished, after which they will join the others. But the questions he asks, she doesn't. The things he wonders about, she won't. He explains that it's been half a century since the scavengers destroyed their moon. Forced to leave their own dying planet, they came to take theirs. Without the moon, the Earth was thrown into chaos. Earthquakes toppled the city within hours. Tsunamis wiped out what was remaining, and the invasion came after that, so they did what they had to do. They used the nukes, which allowed them to win the war, but lose the planet. The nukes left the Earth contaminated, and what remained of humanity was forced to leave Earth. They built Tet, a temporary space station before the migration to Titan, Saturn's largest moon, where everyone is now, or at least almost everyone. Until their tour is complete, he and Vika do their job by protecting the hydro rigs, which convert Earth's seawater into fusion energy for the sea colony, which humanity's survival depends on. Remnants of the scavenger army continue to disrupt their operation by attacking their drones at night and trying to kill them during the day. Jack remarks that they've done well and are an effective team. Vika's his communication officer and keeps an eye on him. He handles drone maintenance. Vika can't wait to go, but he isn't so sure since he can't shake the feeling that in spite of what's happened, Earth is still their home. Jack activates the drone and launches off. While patrolling the area, he checks the condition of all the drones before Vika tells him that 2 are down and asks him to stand by as they have a mission coming online. Their boss, Sally, contacts her and tells her that their perimeter's compromised, so she informs Jack about the coordinates of the drones. But as he's heading to its location, a thunderstorm suddenly obscures his view as Sally asks Vika if she and Jack are an effective team, which she confirms, so Sally says their objective for today is to rehabilitate drone 166 and find 172. Jake's drone, Bob, suddenly powers off and starts falling down, so he hurriedly tries to activate it again and manages to get it running at the last moment. He informs her that he's detecting multiple scav kills and remarks that drone 166 put up one hell of a fight. She tells him that she can't detect any scavengers, but has really limited vision. He sets the drone down and gets ready for repairs, telling her about how the Super Bowl used to happen here. He suddenly hears something and turns around, but realizes it's just a stray dog as the drone reactivates and flies off. Jack informs Vika that 2 drones were taken down today and 10 fuel cells were stolen in just a month, remarking that these scavs are getting bolder day by day. He adds that they have to leave now, so Vika says they got 2 more weeks left, after which they'll be on their way to Titan. Changing the topic, he says they have to find the drone wherever it is, but she remarks that it's like finding a needle in a haystack, so he gets his bike out and remarks that they're going to get their bike game on. Jack finds drone 172 in a sinkhole, but Vika remarks that she can barely hear him there, so he reassures her that there isn't any scav activity nearby. She says that Tet's going to be offline in 15 minutes, after which he'll be left on his own. He goes down the hole and slowly looks around as Vika requests backup at his location. Heading in deeper, Jack suddenly gets back and rushes to the surface, but his rope gets ripped and he loses his gun, so he takes his revolver out to defend him before drone 166 flies down the drone and Vika commands it to fire at everything. Once it's done analyzing Jack's identity, it flies back out of the hole, and before going back up, he picks up a random book. On the surface, he angrily realizes his goddamn bike's disappeared. He later returns and reads the book before Vika calls for him and asks how 109 looks. He answers that it's a sitting duck right now, so she agrees to talk to Sally about its shielding in the morning. He gives her a small plant he found, but she throws it out of the station and tells him that he knows what the regulations are. He says it was a flower, but she tells him that's not the point. because they're very close to the end and the last thing they need is him putting it all at risk. As they're having dinner, she says they're very close to the end and pulls him into the pool with her. Jack and Victoria suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and witness a gigantic explosion occurring. The next day, Sally informs Vika that it was a 6-stage meltdown from inside the Hydro rig's core, to which she informs her that Jack thinks the scavs weaponized the fuel cells they stole. Sally tells her that they can't afford to lose any more drones, so Vika tells Jack to land at the tower. After looking around inside, he informs her that the scavs must have a repeated and are using the building as an antenna, so she informs him that it's a set of coordinates, meaning it's a homing beacon. She asks him why the scavs would be sending a signal off planet, so he decides to shut it down and cuts the wires. Once that's done, he scans the perimeter and informs her that he may not be able to communicate for a while, so she asks him to just tell her where he is, but he doesn't answer and loses communication with her. He arrives at a broken down house where he places the book and plays a vinyl while lying down on the grass, remarking that he's going to miss this place since it could have been great. He suddenly wakes up from a weird dream to see a weird object being dropped in an area. He quickly contacts Vika while heading to its location, but she says the mission's almost offline and contacts HQ, telling them that they've identified an unknown object which came down at coordinates sent by a scav beacon. Sally tells her that they're going offline soon, but the drones are already mobile, so they should have their tech stand down. Vika tells Jack to stand down, but he answers that that's a negative as they need their eyes on this and he has to know if the site is secure. Sally tells Vika that they've lost enough assets today and orders them to stand down before cutting the call. So she relays the message to Jack, but he informs her that he's already on site and that he thinks it's one of their drones. Vika hurriedly orders him to pull out and get out of there immediately, but he touches down and informs her that they have 5 survivors. When the drones start firing at the survivors thinking they're hostile, Vika informs him that she can't control them as Tet's offline, so he fires at it to make it back off while some scavs, hidden from his sight, decide to not attack him. He returns to the station with the sole survivor remaining, who Vika watches in shock and nervously remarks that they're going to have to report this, so he tells her to be sure and report that the drones killed the crew from one of their ships before the woman hurriedly wakes up and starts throwing up the breathing fluid before collapsing. Later, Vika gives the woman water and introduces her and Jack. The woman feebly says she's Julia before Vika informs her that she was part of a crash, although Jack managed to pull her out of the wreckage, but none of her crew survived. Julia wearily tries getting up, but Vika tells her that some disorientation is normal since she's been in deep sleep for so long. Jack tells her that she was sleeping for 60 years at least, so she tries to get up, telling them that she has to get back to her ship. As they're eating dinner, Jack tells Julia that her ship's re-entry was triggered by a beacon from the surface, but she refuses to tell them anything until she gets the flight recorder from her ship, since it's classified, so Vika reminds her that ALO has changed these past 60 years, and Jack tells her about how Earth was destroyed. Vika tells Julia that they understand if she needs some time to herself, since she's lost everything she knew, so she silently walks away. Jack tells Vika that the drones killed Julia's remaining teammates and asks her if she remembers anything before the mission or the memory wipe. She tells him that she wants Julia gone the next day because they don't know who she is or what she is. Julia later asks Jack what's going to happen now, so he tells her that the Tet's going to be online in a while and Vika will report her rescue, after which they'll send someone for her. She tells him that she needs to get the flight recorder from her ship, but he warns her that the scavs move at night and could be all over it now, but she tells him that they need to know what happened. Vika wakes up later to see that the drones disappeared and hurriedly tries communicating Jack, asking him what he's doing. He tells her that Julia wants to get her ship recorder, so she remarks that she can't protect him now, which he agrees with, and turns off communication. They arrive at the wreckage, where Julia looks around in shock while Vika suddenly notices something and tries to alarm Jack, but Julia retrieves the flight recorder and says they should get going before the scavs approach them, so he hurriedly commands the drone to return to the station before the scavs knock him out. Vika tells Sally that Jack went on a pre-dawn patrol and asks her to send a drone to sweep the area. acknowledging the fact that they're currently low on assets. Jack later wakes up strapped to a chair, and a man remarks that he's been after him for quite some time, asking what he's looking for in the books and if he wants to remember more about his past. He asks Jack if he's ever seen a scab up close and switches the lights on, so Jack realizes he's surrounded by scabs. He tells Jack that they're human and reminds him of what the drone did while he was trying to save Julia before Sergeant Sykes arrives, and says they're wasting their time before they free Jack and start moving. The man explains that they decided to go for the long game and brought down the Odyssey, showing him a fuel cell. He explains that they have a nuke as well, but they can't program the drone, which is where they need him, to command the drone to carry the nuke to the Tet and bomb it, thus ending the war. Jack says there are people up there and refuses, so Sergeant Sykes shoots him in the chest before bringing Julia to kill her. Suddenly, they hear an alarm blaring as a drone approaches the scab's base and starts scanning it. The scavs open fire as Vika requests permission to send 2 more drones there, while Jack tells the man that if 1 drone is here, more will follow and they'll turn this place to dust, but he'll call them off if he's let go. The man silently opens a door to reveal Jack's bite and tells him that he'll find the truth in the radiation zones. Jack rides off with Julia as Vika locates him at the tower and sends the drone for him. He asks Julia who she is and what her real objective was, so she reveals that it was a research flight to Titan, but 6 weeks into launch, their deep space scanners detected an alien object, so they were reassigned to investigate and were all put in Delta, so Jack and Victoria must have been the first ones to wake up. She discloses that the Titanic was the Tet, but he refuses to believe it and questions who she is, so she says she's his wife and reminds him of how they came at this exact spot and asked her to look through the binoculars. Jack suddenly remembers everything and says he held up a ring and she said yes. Overwhelmed, Julia thankfully embraces him and Jack remembers how everything played out. The drone suddenly appears in front of them and Vika sheds a tear after seeing everything. As he's returning, Jack hurriedly asks Vika to not report to mission until he's back, but she takes off her headset and turns away. When Jack returns to the station, he sees that the door is locked and asks Vika to not do this, but she just says it was Julia all along, so he reveals that she's his wife. Vika presses the button to talk to Sally and tells her that she's having problems with her technician and he is unfit, as Jack desperately tells her that she's making a mistake and tells her to open the door. Vika tells Sally that she's no longer an effective team with her technician. The door opens and Jack hurriedly tries to persuade Vika that there is no Titan, but a drone suddenly kills Vika and knocks him into the floor, so Julia takes it out. Sally tells Jack that she's sorry for Vika's death and tells him that they want him and the survivor to return as they're assigning him a new mission. Jack and Julia swiftly leave the station and immediately start getting chased by a horde of drones, so Jack rushes into a thunderstorm as Julia apologizes to him. As they're escaping, Jack manages to get the drones attacked by a thunderclap and hides in a waterfall. He rushes through the land and tells Julia that they won't hit the perimeter, but a drone suddenly collides with their ship and they crash into the sand. Getting out of it, he notices the ship landing near the destroyed drone and goes to investigate it from afar, but as he nears the technician, the man turns around and they're the same person with the same faces. The two defensively train their guns on each other, but Jack drops his as a sign of peace before Julia arrives, shocking the other Jack before the real one jumps him and they start fighting each other. When the real Jack manages to incapacitate the second Jack, he deactivates the drone and realizes Julia got hit by one of their gun's bullets in shock. He quickly lays her down in a shaded area and ties the fake Jack before taking the ship and rushing to the fake station. He warily makes his way inside and gets medicine before running into Vika, who asks if anything's wrong. He tells her that it was a false alarm before she goes for a kiss. He says she should come with him to the surface, but she hesitantly says he knows the regulations and remarks that she doesn't want to discuss this more, so he agrees and leaves. Arriving at Julia's location, he quickly treats her and flies her somewhere else. Later, Julia wakes up in Jack's broken down hut and goes outside to this side. He tells her that he's not the guy she once knew, but he did once love her. She tells him about how he told her he would build a house near a lake when it was all over. They grow old together and be buried in a meadow near the house, after which they would always be together. She tells him that these memories are theirs and lightly kisses him. The next morning, Jack tells her that he could live in this house for the rest of his life, so she says they still can and tells him to promise that they'll come back once it's all over, which he affirms. They return to the Scavs headquarters, where the man tells Jack he would have gone crazy if he'd known what he was going to find. As Jack starts working on the drone, the man reveals that he was in the army when the Tet rose up to the sky and took out the moon. When the dust settled down, they sent spaceships filled with hundreds of Jack Harpers with their memories wiped. They used their best soldier and turned him against them, but when Jack took that book with him and read it, that's when it occurred to him that he was different, and when Jack stepped in front of the drone to save Julia, he knew the real Jack was in there somewhere. When the drone has become operational, they load it onto a battle machine and open the gates to head out, but 3 drones suddenly rush in and start wreaking havoc by raining fire on everything within their reach. The civilians hurriedly scatter and Julia takes the lead in protecting them, but the drone trains its beams on them all before Jack suddenly takes it down from behind. He goes for the other one next and manages to blow it up as well, but gets hit by the impact. Sykes wakes him up and he reunites with Julia before they head to the worn-down man's side. He slowly admits he thought they had it and asks them to send the drone. Jack says it's destroyed, but he'll take it up there himself. The man dismisses his suggestion and remarks that they'll swat him away like a fly, so Julia says that won't happen if she goes with him. Jack tries to object, but she says that's what they asked of him in the first place. As he lays her down to sleep again, he tells her to dream of them and takes her pod to the ship. While they're going, he remembers how he woke up and how he and Vika were forced to disengage the pod containing Julia from their ship, after which they entered the Tet. In present day, as he's slowly heading into the deeper layers of the Tet, Sally tells him that she can't help but notice how his respiration and heart rate have increased. He answers that he's just excited to meet her, so she adds that there's been a pattern of insubordinate behavior recently. He remarks that he feels bad about that, so she reveals that the system has detected this as a lie and orders him to tell her why he's here in 5 seconds. He tells her that he wants Julia to live and their species to survive and is permitted to land. Arriving in front of the core of the Tet, Jack opens the pod to reveal the man and tells Sally about an ancient city called Rome, which she destroyed before pressing the button and making everything explode, while Julia wakes up at their house and emotionally watches the explosion and all the drones attacking the Scavs suddenly fall dead. 3 years later, he wonders if he comes to her at night in dreams and memories as she once haunted his, and wonders if she sees him when she looks at her. The small girl suddenly points to some people approaching as he says he searched for the house he built for 3 years and knew it had to be out there because he knew him, because he is him. He is Jack Harper and he is home. Thanks for watching our breakdown of Oblivion. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more movie insights. Let us know your thoughts on Jack Harper's journey and what you'd like to see next.